Yep, my name is Chuck Gose, based out of Indianapolis, and I work for a company called Stratacache, which is a digital signage software company.
Okay, great. Now, what were you doing here today? What was your presentation?
So here, as part of the NEC Showcase, Daily Do is putting on the Employee Communications Thought Leadership Summit, which is a day-long event with a variety of speakers, all focused on employee communications, employee engagement, digital signage content, and both case studies as well as great lessons to be learned.
And what was your presentation about?
So I took more of a scientific approach to my presentation. It was on the physics of employee engagement, which what I've done is sort of look at Newton's laws of motion, which necessarily a lot of communicators may not be familiar with unless they took it in high school or before that. But it really relates things to, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Well, that applies itself perfectly to employee engagement. Employees that are at rest, not doing anything, they're going to keep not doing anything. Employees that are moving, they want to keep moving. Objects want to keep doing what they're doing. And so how can companies take those employees who are at rest and apply a force to them? Again, kind of those physics philosophies. Apply a force to them to get them moving, but also the employees that are in motion and running, are they going to the right places? And if they are, get out of their way. Let them keep doing the right things.
So how do companies fight this inertia? How do they make change happen?
Well, that is the hard part. Change is difficult, and Newton's second law, we'll get back into the physics argument, says the larger the organization, like the bigger the object, the bigger the force required to make change. So it's kind of the old cliche of sort of turning the ship. A small boat can turn on a dime and get going. A bigger ship takes a long time to get turned around going the other way. So these companies have to be persistent, consistent, and over time keep applying the same message, the same forces to get employees to recognize the value in what they're doing.
What are the mistakes that you do a lot of consulting in large companies, employee communications? What are the mistakes that you find people make?
I can be very critical of communicators. I really like to challenge them on what they're doing, and so often what I see communicators where they can lend value but not, many of them act like the post office. And what I mean is that they just sort of take a message and send it out via a channel. They're not adding value. They're not asking, how could we do this better? Part of my presentation was talking about a physicist named Dr. Julius Sumner Miller. Amazing YouTube videos of this guy. Looks like Gargamel from the Smurfs. Does these amazing physics experiments, but his tagline is always, "Why is it so?" And that's sort of the question that I would like communicators to ask themselves. We've got this content, we've got this message. Why is it so? What's its purpose? What's the end game for this? Not every piece of content, just because somebody delivers you a message doesn't mean it needs to be sent out. But what's the value you can add to increase the retention, increase the engagement that employees are going to have? I think communicators sort of make the mistake in thinking that employees are still a captive audience, where they're the furthest thing from it. They've got to compete with all sorts of other pieces of content out there, not just the internet, not just social, but people's mobile devices. Their attention spans are shorter. So communicators have to be more creative, more entertaining, and I think sort of borrow some things that they're seeing in external media and bring it in internal.
What sort of things do you have in mind?
Just, like I said, think about the message, think about the content, and if they aren't interested in it, then why would they expect an employee to be interested in it? Sort of be their own litmus test for that piece of content. And I think communicators too often think because they're always handling the message, well, because they're seeing it all the time, everybody else is seeing it all the time. When communicators do have a great responsibility for monitoring various channels and putting things out, but they're the ones controlling that message. Employees, their communication choice is personal. We know that some employees love getting emails, some never read them. Some look at digital signage screens, some don't, some go to the internet every day, some don't even know they have an intranet. So communicators are aware of the channels and the messages, but they need to be kind of conscious that employees may not always be aware of those messages.
What difference are the new social tools making to this argument, do you think?
I think it's sort of addressing a need of employees contributing. And I love user-generated content on the internal sites, because so often communicators can sort of act as a pinch point in an organization. Everything has to flow through them, or sometimes they want it to flow through them. They might involuntarily act as a filter or a barrier for messages to get out. So reduce the burden on the communicators, let them think more strategically, but let sort of that day-to-day communication take place directly between employees, not over email where it's more private one-on-one, but on social channels where other employees can weigh in and add their 2 cents.
Do you feel, or do you think that this need to be more agile, for companies to be more agile, is something that's always been with us, or is it accelerating now?
I think it's always been with us. And I've been in employee communications for a long time. And I feel like there's always been a need for companies to be more agile, even before social. Companies want to be rigid, they want to be very process oriented. In some ways, that's good. But in other ways, it can be a real barrier to getting communications out effectively.
So what is your recommendation to communicators looking at it from a physics point of view?
Even giving it a little more basic than that, I just want communicators to give a damn. Think about the impact that they have in an organization. They're not just communicating. They're ambassadors in many ways, and they have access to leadership and executives that very few employees have. There are employees who probably worked at a company 20, 30, 40 years that maybe they've only seen a picture of a CEO or a COO. Whereas communicators, often they've got face-to-face, one-on-one conversations. So I'd like to see communicators make sure they're taking advantage of that access and really driving and pushing companies to be creative, to be engaging, to show the employees that companies care. Because I do think, it's very leadership driven sometimes, but companies do, I believe, intrinsically care about their employees. They've got to show it. They can't just say it. They've got to show they care. And I believe you get that going, employees will return the favor. Because right now we see engagement as sort of a one-way street. Companies are asking employees, are you engaged? Employees aren't asking companies, are you engaged in us? That's the two-way that I think needs to happen.
Going back to the role of the communicator, can those that have been used to running the post office, can they adapt to this new world, or?
I would hope, but I think some of that is their style. I think sometimes people get put into communication roles for a variety of reasons. I mean, when I came out of college, internal communications existed, but it wasn't really a form or a function within companies. So I think as these roles develop, sort of people might have gravitated for one reason or another into these roles, maybe because they had a knack for it or they thought it was interesting. But now where we see more of a career path for people, it's very easy to see the communicators who are on target, on message, get it, apply the creativity, apply the energy necessary to be a great communicator. I think those that don't are really hurting their companies quite a bit.
How did your presentation go down today compared to in America?
Well, so I think it went really well. And what I like to see, so I use terms like power, energy, flow, momentum, force, these very physics terms. Even the term work is a physics term. Then presentations after me, not talking about physics, use some of the exact same language. So there is a tie between what we're doing every day in our physical environment and how companies can better engage employees.
Gose, thanks very much.
Thank you.